So I needed a camera for a real estate gig that I shot, and it was a photo and video shoot. So I have my video camera, the FX3, and I needed a photo camera. So I went with the Sony A7CII Mark II. And there was some things that were important to me when it came to picking a camera specifically for photo. Image quality, compact size, lens compatibility, and autofocus and some of the AI features. For me, I wanted something that was a little bit more minimal, but also something I could see myself purchasing in the future just with the price tag this has to offer. One thing Sony does extremely well that a lot of other brands are kind of lacking in is they have their pro level cameras that are extremely expensive and have all the features in the world, but then they have their lower level cameras that have a lot of the features that the pro level cameras have, but at a price that's affordable for a professional or a consumer or just an everyday person, which is something that's nice because you can take these cheaper cameras and you can use them for professional types of shoots. When it comes to real estate photography, what's really important is exposure bracketing for HDR processing and post-production. And that's what my main focus was when getting a camera. That, and that it was full frame. And for me, what's important is the HDR we'll get into a little bit later and how that works, but the full frame is important because in a room that you're shooting with real estate, you want the widest image to make the room look as big as possible. And full frame and a 16mm will do that. I was able to shoot this, I was able to take my 16-35 on this shoot and shoot with that. It was the first time I took this lens on a real estate shoot and shot with it. But it was nice having the ability to stay at 16 and having the ability to go into 24 and 30 when I really needed to. So the first thing I want to talk about is image quality. And this camera is 34.1 megapixels. And that is a lot of megapixels. When we compare it to that of my FX3, which I do not recommend anyone shoot photos with, this thing's 12.1 megapixels. So you're almost double that and some. It gets interesting when you talk about the highest end, and it shows really where the pixel count is. A7R5 is 61 megapixels. The A1 is 50 megapixels. So those are a ton of megapixels, a ton of information, but at 34.1 and what I'm using this camera for and the price this is, you are getting so much information out of the image and so much sharpness you can play with in the post-production process. And you need that when you're doing HDR and exposure bracketing because you're mixing and combining 3 and up to 5 photos at once to create an image. So you need all the information you can get to make sure the image comes out the way you want it to come out. Next thing is compact size. This thing is small and this thing is light. If you used anything in the A7 line, that being the A7 Mark IV, the A7S, the A7R, those are big, bulky cameras, and they're a little bit less than what the FX3 is, but they're bulky. And this gives you the option of a small, light, and compact camera, which is nice when you're taking photos. But also what this has is an electronic viewfinder, and I mean, a lot of cameras have that, but it's nice when you're outside shooting and it's bright daylight and the screen isn't doing exactly what you need it to do. You can look in there and you can get exactly the shot you want. So it's nice to have an electric viewfinder. Next up is lens compatibility. And I talked about this a little bit earlier, but at this price tag at about $2,000 and a full frame sensor, you're able to use all of the G Master lenses in the way they were supposed to be used. You're able to use anything that is full frame and get the fullest amount of full frame out of it. And it sounds like it's something simple, but until you go and shoot with an APS-C, it makes a big difference and you notice it, especially when you're going for that wide depth of field, that wide shot, and that the 16mm is able to give you right out of camera. It makes a huge difference, especially for real estate photography. Next is the autofocus and the features. This has 5-axis image stabilization, and that might not sound important for photo. This was the first ever shoot I shot without a tripod, and it sounds absolutely crazy when you're doing exposure bracketing without a tripod, but it worked seamlessly and it got me moving through the house a lot faster. And then I talk about it a lot, but the exposure bracketing, this camera has it. When I've shot in the past, I've used a Fuji X-T3 and I had to literally take a photo, shutter down, take a photo, shutter up, and it was a process. It probably added an extra hour and a half to my day. But with this, you have the option of bracketing right in camera at 3 photos or 5 photos. So I had it set at -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, and I would take one photo, no tripod, and it would be about at 1/40, 1/50th of a second shutter. And I would just click and it would take my photo. I'd be completely still. The IBIS would kick in, the autofocus would kick in real quick, and it would get me exactly what I needed. So if you're a real estate photographer, try shooting without a tripod because it really makes the day go by faster and it makes you get a lot more angles that you're not able to get when setting up a tripod. And then that goes into my next point, which is this thing has great autofocus, and that's one thing Sony is known for. They're known for their autofocus with basically the eye locking on and all that stuff with video, with photo, all of that. But what shocked me with this was when I was doing the bracketing photos, how the one autofocus locked on for all 5 different exposures and it locked on seamlessly. So I was just really shocked with how good the autofocus is. I shouldn't continuously be shocked with the autofocus system inside of these Sony cameras, but they're really that smart. And it has 759 autofocus points. I know that is like a nerd fact, but it covers up to 94% of the image's area. So you're getting whatever you need in focus. And it's just one of those things where if you can trust your camera and you can trust the software behind your camera, it makes your job a lot easier because that is one less stress factor. That's one less piece of anxiety that you're gonna have on your shoot, and you can focus more on the creativity than what the brains of the camera have to offer. So this was a quick video. I've had this camera for about 48 hours, but I've been using it non-stop, and I just needed a camera fast in a pinch. So as I don't know everything about this camera, it's just my thoughts on how this camera worked for me in the short time I was using it. So if you find this video helpful, let me know down in the comments. But I'm gonna have linked up above and down below a real estate video I did about a year ago. That was a day in the life, kind of showing off how I use film and how I use photography to put together real estate content. And as always, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you do not miss an upload. Until the next video, peace.